Hello. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm using a new what am I using? I'm using a new browser, and hopefully there was some delays and that sort of thing. So hopefully I got that fixed. I know it's been a long time, so I want to make sure that I give some time for people to get on. I didn't publicize it that much unless you really follow me. But tonight is going to be about, I'm going to focus on three things that I think people need to have their eyes on if they want to build wealth for the future. We, of course, will talk about home ownership as one of those things. This is going to be a Ask Me Anything. So you can ask me anything for this hour. We'll be here from 7 o'clock until 8 o'clock. I want to start off just by thanking everybody for their prayers, their words of support and comfort for me and my family in the loss of my father-in-law. And that's the last live that I did talking about him. So thank you guys for your support. I don't want to have to cry on this live, so I'm going to keep it questions and try to answer as many as possible. So while you guys are getting on, I am going to first, hey, Suzanne, thank you for joining me. First, I'm going to go over, and I'm looking at two different cameras. So I'm trying to get that together as well. All right. So the three things, and I'm also going to show you because I'm going to do the three things, but I'm also going to go over taxes on new construction because this came across my desk today, and I was like, oh, this is a good example, so people can really understand how people can get into a new construction home and they can afford it that first year, and then after that, they are shocked and surprised by how much the increase is. And that's a big problem with people getting in, especially first time home buyers, because they're unaware. The agents are trying to get them in and show them how affordable it is. And then that next month it goes up hundreds of dollars, and then they can't afford it. And sometimes they can't sell. That's going to be my next video, like new construction beware, because you have to really think about this ahead of time. You have to think about it ahead of time with every purchase, but new construction is really different as far as tax estimation. So I want to make sure you understand how that works. All right, so a lot of things for me to do, but go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat. I think we have about 20 people right now, which is great. I need to start off slow, y'all. Thank you so much, everybody. Please put your questions in the chat, because when I start answering questions, I'm going to answer them in the order that they're received. Okay. So let me go. I had it up there for a second. Let me go back. All right. So this is the first thing I want to show. So these are the three things I need y'all to have top of mind if you're going to build wealth for the future. The first one is AI, artificial intelligence. The most basic thing you can download right now is ChatGPT. ChatGPT is free, right? So you can get in there for free, but you also can pay $20 a month for like ChatGPT Pro. I would recommend that you do the Pro. Well, first, if you don't know if you want to invest $20 a month yet, start the free version. And then when you like really get into it, then upgrade to the $20 a month. Now, one thing about ChatGPT, what you will learn, because it'll get you more aware of how quickly it does things. It does things so much faster than you could ever do it. It almost every area of your life you could use ChatGPT for. So be it in your personal life, you can use it in your business life, you can use it to make money. You can literally say, hey, I want to make $1 million by the end of 2025. Might not have enough time, right? But you can say something along the lines, and I'm going to put some links after this video in the description of videos you should watch that talk about AI. So you could say, I want to make $1 million. Here are the skills that I already have. Give me a plan to make this $1 million by the end of the year, and use, other people that have done it in this space. So say you're in the catering space, or you're a real estate agent, or you're a physician, whatever it is, or you're a builder, or you bake cakes, or whatever your skill set is. You can tell them, this is my skill set, this is how much I have, and what can I do with it? And they'll give you some ideas as to what you can do, how you can market it. They can give you a full business plan for the year, for the month, for the week, for the day, and they'll do it probably in like a couple of minutes. So as far as building wealth, you can start today and just put in that prompt alone. That's something to get you started. You need to know how AI works. You'll understand why a lot of jobs will likely be replaced by AI. So replaced, and then they'll probably hire different people that they won't need as many employees. That's for sure. But they probably will hire people to use AI so they would be more efficient in their own role. But if you're not even on it to understand how it works, then you're going to like be surprised that they'll replace potentially your position. So we need to be aware of it. We need to be using it to be better ways to be more efficient, more effective. I used it today on my son's homework, not to like have it do his homework for him, but he got a paper back and he got a 70 on it. And so I was okay, let me look and let's kind of go by why you didn't explain things as well. Because the teacher gave him some basic feedback. But what I did was I typed what the directions were. So it's almost like you could tutor all your children. I put in what the directions were, what my son's answers were. And then I said, give me what he could have done better and what technique can he use in the future to make sure he explains it well enough to get a higher grade or to improve his grade. So that's something I was able to print out. They gave me an example of it. They rewrote what he should have said. So then for this teacher specifically, because they want it in a certain format, he now knows what they're looking for. So because they're not allowed to, like, they're doing a lot of handwriting in school now. They don't allow them to be on like AI and that sort of thing. But now he has like a template that he can use, an example of how he could have done that better so he can apply it to his future work. So that's number one. So if you're not on it, Chat GPT is free. Get on it at every age. I don't care if you're 70. I don't care if you're 80. Like, get on it. I don't care if you're 12, 13, 14. Like, everybody needs to be aware of it. And then small business. The two ways people build wealth are small businesses and home and property ownership. And I put home and property ownership together because it could be your own home that's going to help you build wealth over time, or you can buy investment property and you could be getting that revenue, but it's really a small business. If you start buying property, you're kind of a small business. Your business is real estate. So either or, but we have to be in these areas, especially in the fourth one would be investing for sure. Investing in the stock market. I've done those videos as well. So I should have had a number 4 on here. So changes to number 4, top 4 things you need to do. And then investing. You have to be in these areas if you're going to build wealth because things are moving very quickly. So you want to be aware of how your job can change. You want to be aware of, business. Like, what kind of business could I start? ChatGPT can help you with that. Home and property ownership, that's a big component of this channel. And then lastly, investing. I'm actually going to I'm going to add that in here so I don't forget. And so any of those questions you can ask me. Okay, that's number 4, save. And then I have across the bottom, I updated my website. So it used to be shaheedahhill.com. I changed it to confidentlyclose.com. And I have tabs for everything, the most common things that people ask me for. And I also have a referral. So if you need an agent in your state, I'm in Georgia. If you need an agent in your state, then I have my top 10 states as far as people that watch me and ask for referrals. I'm starting just with those 10, not to be overwhelmed. I do have an email address there for people outside of the state, but now I have a system where before I didn't really have a system in place. So if you need a referral, you can click on your state and then you could fill out a form and I will connect you with an agent. So please use that website. You can find my masterclass there. If you're an agent, you can be in my YouTube membership if you want to know how to do YouTube videos. So that's where I have everything. And I'm happy to have everything in one place now. All right, so let me put that back up there. 4 things. You need to know how to use AI in your personal and business life. You need to think about a small business at least. Home and property ownership, even if you're not going to live there, and then investing. So those are our 4 things that we really need to make sure we understand. All right, going back to comments. I have questions. All right, so the last thing before I take your questions is the taxes that I wanted to show. So I'm putting that up there. Hopefully let me put some things away. I'm hiding that. All right, so let's look at this. Hopefully, if you can't see it very large, maybe you could screenshot it later, either now or in the replay. So what you're looking at is, and I snapped this right from like a MLS website. And sometimes you may see something similar in Zillow. So this is a house that's listed for sale that they bought as a DR Horton home that they bought in 2022. Now they're selling it in 2023. Now, sorry, 2025, 3 years later. Remember, if you're buying a home, I don't care if it's new construction or resale, but particularly new construction, because those prices are elevated a lot of times, you need to make sure you're going to live in that property for 5 to 7 years. So I don't know why they're selling, but I talked to a closing attorney. They said most of the transactions right now have the 4 Ds. They're divorce, meaning they're getting divorced, death. What was the other thing? Downsizing, because you have a lot of baby boomers right now, or drama. Like there's some kind of drama in that transaction, because most people that are just stable, they're not trying to move because they need a lower payment, and they know when they sell, they're usually going to have a higher payment selling that house. All right, so remember those 4 Ds, but that could be a deal. That's the fifth D, a deal for buyers, because people are in situations sometimes that they have to sell their home. All right, so let's look at this. So in 2022, the property taxes on this house, and they are selling this house for $400,000. It's actually $399,000, but let's say $400,000. The property taxes were $892.45. So that's $892.45. And I have my little calculator because I didn't have time to do this ahead of time. So let's do 892 divided by 12. That would be $74 a month. So very affordable. When you have your taxes, your insurance, your principal, your interest, $74 is not a big deal. Now, the reason why it was so low is because a portion of 2022, remember, you're paying your taxes, after the year, right? So this house is a new construction house. So the county is billing the new owner based on the previous assessment of the value, which there was no house on that land. It was just a lot. So the taxes for just the land, no house, was $892.45 in 2022. So $74 a month. Now let's go to 2023. Now you've lived there for a year. There's a house on that property now. So now the tax assessor comes back out and say, hey, now this house is worth, they have a tax assessment value of 147, like how much they're going to tax. Now it's $5,224. So it went from $892 to $5,200. So $5,200 divided by 12 is $433 a month. So you went from $74 a month to $433 a month. So you're almost going up with $350 or so in your monthly payment. Now, your closing attorney or title company are allowed, because they base their estimate of your mortgage either on most likely the last year's taxes. So they could use that 892. And I've had situations where they ask my client, do you want us to use the previous, because they'll have cheaper, payments that first year, or do you want us to go ahead and use the real payment? And some of my clients will say, yes, we want you to use the lower payment, and then we'll save on our own, and we'll be ready to pay the real payment when it's due. And some people, they don't even have those conversations with the lender or their agent. And they just say, oh, this payment is so cheap, right? So you have to be aware, especially if you're buying new construction, and I'm almost done, you have to be aware that your taxes will increase. Do not take this number and be like, oh, it's so cheap. Your taxes will increase. They will increase a lot. You want an actual estimate. You want to ask that closing attorney, that title company, that lender, what are my real taxes going to be? Okay. So just make sure you're doing that. In 2024, it was $6,062. So it continued to go up, just not as much. That's almost another $1,000 that third year. So now they're selling, and the new person that's coming in, their estimate is going to be that $6,000, because they'll use, now it's 2025. Now they'll use that $6,062. And that's why resale homes, the payments are more predictable, to know exactly what that payment is probably going to be. So you have to be very careful with new construction. So that's what I wanted to go over. I think I went over everything. I'm going to take your questions now. So let's go. And thank you guys for the condolences. I think y'all can hear me, so that's good. All right, I have my birthday twin. My birthday is August 31st, so I'm thinking I'm about a little less than 2 weeks away. And Curtis, who bought his first house last year, and he was following the channel for a long time. We figured, I think on Instagram or something, that we have the same birthday. So that's very, very cool. Thank you, and happy birthday in advance, Curtis. All right. So go ahead and add your questions to the chat. We don't have a lot of people on because I didn't publicize it as much. So go ahead and ask your questions. Y'all probably can get a lot of questions answered today. All right. And thank you again for all your condolences. So Sharon asks, can you speak to how to successfully appeal property tax, or do you have a video as a reference or a guide? So I don't have a video about how to successfully um, appeal your property taxes, but I do have some ideas of what you can do. And there's a company, I can't think of the name of it right now, but there's a company that does this for you. So after this live, there's going to be some links in the comments of the description, of this video. Go ahead and look. I'll put that link in there, the company that does it for you. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure you fill out the appeal paperwork. So if you're going to appeal, generally when your tax assessment comes in the mail, they'll say something like, if you want to appeal it, your deadline is this date. So number one, you need to look at that date and make sure you fill out the appeal paperwork by that date. I mean, there's no harm, even if you're not ready or something like that, there's no harm in filling it out and then changing your mind. But at least you have it all filled out. So go ahead and fill out the paperwork. Now, the person, if you used an agent to help you buy the property, then I would be in contact with him or her to say, hey, I need your help pulling comparable homes to my home. Because what generally speaking, what the county or city tax assessor does, they're not going to each and every house. They're doing a couple of houses here, a couple of houses there, and then they're probably estimating by bedrooms and square footage what your home should be valued at. But it could be that you had some foreclosures in your neighborhood, or there are a lot of renters in your neighborhood. It could be a variety of things, or maybe you're in a different school zone than the other homes that they use. So you want to try to gather all of that stuff up. You want to ask the county or the city, what comparable homes did they use to come to that value? That'll be number one. Like, what did they use? You want to get your agent to help you get comparable homes that have sold in the last year. They might have to go a little bit even farther back than that, because sometimes they'll use a little bit older because the tax assessments look at last year's, for some counties, they'll look at last year's home sales. So have them get them for like the last year's, 18 months or something like that. But you want to get from the county request, what did you use to determine my home's value? Then you want to work with your agent to say, okay, I need you to pull comps that are most like my house. And I do watch my appraisal video. I have an appraisal video, like a live appraisal video. If you search on my channel, appraiser, I had an appraiser come, we did a live together, and he talked about how they determine value. That's a good video to watch. So now you have what the county used, or the city, and you have what your agent has been able to pull for you that are more accurate to your house, hopefully. And you can determine, okay, what is this house really worth? If you want to invest some more money, you can get an independent appraisal of your house, and that's a little bit stronger. And tell them you're using it to, appeal your property taxes and, figure out what it is. If you bought a home recently, then you might have the appraisal that the bank did. So you have that, or you can pay for an appraisal. If it's a lot of money, like discrepancy in the value, it may be worth paying for an actual appraisal of your home. But you just want to get all of that information. And then I'm going to put, because I was talking about AI, I want you to go to AI and say, hey, these are the things that I'm trying to appeal. This is what I have. How can I best make my case? And they can help you with that too. So it's almost like they said that like AI can, pass the bar exam. I'm not saying they're a lawyer, but they can help you a lot in how to do your appeal, fill out the application. The best prompt you can use is say, I'm trying to appeal my property taxes for my home, my address or city is this. What do you need from me? So you tell the chat GPT, you say, what do you need from me? And then they'll ask you some questions. Answer all of those questions to the best of your ability, and then see what they give you back. So that's a good starting point. So again, let me just recap. I want you to ask your city or county what comps, what homes did they use to determine your value? Reach out to your agent. And if your agent, say you didn't use an agent, or your agent, you're not in communication with them, then use an agent in your area. A lot of them want business anyway, so they'll usually help you find those comparable homes. You want to perhaps hire an appraiser. And then you want to use something like ChatGPT to help you with your application, with your appeal, the whole process. All right, that's what I would do. Thank you so much. All right, let's see. All right, y'all telling me I don't have any questions? All right, good to see you guys. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Curtis says, I'm always gonna watch your channel. I'm glad I caught your video. Thank you so much. Y'all keeping it easy on me, so I'll just see who's here. We already saw Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne. That one twice fan. Hi, how are you? Shelby, come put y'all questions in the chat. Y'all gonna have me till you'll have me until 8 o'clock, which is 35 minutes. So I would ask as many questions as possible. Sharon, I already did that one. Thanks, Sharon, for the question. Alva, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh my goodness. Welcome back. Thank you. Yes, it's a little bit of a surprise. I put it on like my page, but I didn't really talk about it a lot. So he says, it was funny. I was just watching your old videos and here you are. Yes. So send me some questions. If not, I'm just going to talk to y'all. So over July, I had a lot of closings, like personal closings. So let me try to think if I've learned any lessons from any of those. So I'll try to tell you those. One is we had a flip. My clients were buying a flip, and one of the I guess the sticking points in the negotiations was there was a rusted water heater. So my client, they were the buyer, their inspector, amongst other things, the seller was willing to do a lot of the things, but they were like, oh, that water heater is only 1 to 2 years old. So we're going back and forth, because he's saying that the seller's saying the water heater is pretty new, and we're saying it's rusted because the plumber and the inspector said you have to replace this water heater, and they would not just sign the amendment saying to replace it. So long story short, we made an amendment saying that if you can't remove 100% of the rust from the water heater, because they made it seem like they could replace a part to remove the rust, and the inspector and everybody said that can't be done. So we just came to an agreement that if 100% of the rust can't be used, then they would replace the water heater. Long story short, of course, they couldn't take the rust out, so they had to give them a new water heater. But that was a point of contention because they thought that the water heater was a newer water heater that shouldn't have to be replaced. So what you can learn from that situation is that you don't want to lose a deal off of something like a water heater. A water heater might be $2,000 at the most water heaters. And so I did get a quote from the plumber to say, okay, how much would you have to replace the water heater, just in case, we have that number to negotiate with, because they could, take that off their closing costs, that sort of thing. So I had that information. I reached out to the plumber. I talked to the inspector again. And in order for them to just sign and for us to move on, because you don't want to lose a deal off a $2,000 water heater, but you have to get that language set in such a way that both sides feel like they're protected. So you just want to make sure that you're doing that. They wind up getting a new water heater. Your inspector can always come back out to make sure the things that were supposed to be repaired or replaced were done. And so they did do that as well, because it was an older house. So learn that lesson. Let me see. All right, so let's do. All right, thank you so much. Put your question. I think we have a question. Oh, Alva says, I used your referral for a realtor and purchased my home the end of last month. Thank you for all of your information. It really helped me and my husband to finally purchase a home. Thank you so much, Alva. That is so nice to hear. I really appreciate it. And of course, like I said, confidentlyclose.com is like my new referral source. If you need a referral, I'm starting with these 10 states. I can't even name the states, but we did some data saying, okay, where are we getting the most of our requests for referrals? So we use that. I want to build to the, all 50 states, but I have to kind of vet all the agents in the different areas. So that's going to take me a minute. So I'm starting just with these 10, and then I'll probably add them on slowly so all the states are covered. But thank you so much. Congratulations, Alva. And thank you for coming back to tell me that. I appreciate it. All right. And stay with the channel because we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff in 2025 and 2026. All right. What are your other questions? I know y'all have some questions. Put them in the chat. All right. So I'll tell you about that one. What was my other one? All right. So I had a VA buyer. That's Veterans Administration. So somebody who has served in the military or currently served in the military, or a spouse of somebody that's serving in the military can do a VA loan. And the benefit of a VA loan, that it's 100% financing. So you don't have to put down a down payment. You do still have closing costs. So you have to be mindful of that. They did Navy Federal. And what I'm finding lately, especially for VA buyers, that Navy Federal really has the most competitive rates. I was still getting at least one other quote. I always say 3, but at least one other one just to see where those rates are falling. But they did Navy Federal, and VA loans, when they send the appraiser out, they're also looking at the house for, safety issues and that sort of thing. So overall, the seller did everything we asked for. As far as repairs, there were some roof repairs that needed to get done. What else? There was other repairs that the garage door needed to be replaced. So they did that on their own. But when the appraiser came out, the appraiser said that they wanted that the drop down from the porch to the ground was too high. So they had to install a railing along the porch, and they had to going down to the basement. There was only a railing on one side, and then there was not a railing on the other side. So, and this house was built in 2023. So it wasn't an older house. So it got past the basic probably appraisal, inspections, that sort of thing. But they did require those two things. So with FHA loans and VA and sometimes conventional, but definitely the government loans, when the appraiser comes out to do value, they're not doing a full inspection, but they're going to make sure it is safe and sanitary are the basic things, right? They'll come in, they'll flush the toilets, they'll turn on the water, they'll make sure all of that stuff works, and then they'll look for any safety issues. So the appraiser, in addition to giving the value, they made the buyer, like they won't let the sale go through until those things are finished. They put those two things on the appraisal, like these things have to be done before you can close. So the seller, did those two things and they were able to close. So just be mindful, but never replace, because some people hear, well, they're going to, inspect it as well. No, their primary job, FHA loans, USDA loans, VA loans, their primary job is to appraise the property. They're not going to do a detailed inspection of that property. So you have to do both. So they did a regular home inspection. Then the appraiser came out and required them to put some of those safety things in. Okay. All right. Let's see. Y'all need to start asking for some questions. All right. Let's see. Well, my Nisi has a question. Hey, Nisi. Okay, Nisi says, what is the best way to leave my house to my daughter? All right, so it really depends on a variety of things. I'll say that number one, but you're in luck because I've done 3 estate planning, probate videos. And this question was asked a lot of times. So for example, a lot of people, ask, well, can I just put my child on the title? So if something happens to me, it would automatically go to them. And I remember the lawyer, and I had a lawyer do these lives with me. And I remember the lawyer saying specifically to that question was, well, you may not want to do that. It may seem like it's easy and it's probably the most cost effective thing for you to do, but now you're giving that child ownership of that house. So if anything happens or you have to refinance or you have to do something, that child has to agree that all of that, that's going to get done because now they own your property. Sometimes that can hurt them. Sometimes it really depends. If they're trying to do a first-time home buyer program themselves, or say your state sees that they have a house in their name, that might cause them not to be eligible for first-time homebuyer programs. Not all the time though, so just check that, because now they own a property. And sometimes with certain programs, you cannot own a property to qualify. So the other options, of course, are to have a will or a trust in place. The trust is the most expensive option of the three. The title, adding them to the title, is going to be the least expensive, but there are pros and cons for that. Having a will is the second price thing. You probably can get it for a few $100s a will. And you could leave in the event of your passing, you could leave that house to her. The difference is you have to probate. So your daughter would have to go to probate court in order for that house to be officially hers. Where in a trust, as soon as you were to pass away, depending on how the trust is written, then that house would automatically transfer to her. And that's a way too to avoid, she still would qualify for first-time home buyer programs, that sort of thing, because she doesn't own the property, but the property is in a trust, and then that trust will be given to her. But yeah, watch those 3 videos. I'll try to make it as easy as possible for you. I'm going to put those 3 videos in the description of this video, but they were all lives that I did. Like each February for like Black History Month, I bring on professionals to talk about different things. And I brought on the same lawyer 3 times, and he's done a really good job of explaining how to keep property in the family. So yeah, watch those videos, and I'll make sure I'm making my notes of things I need to add to the description of this video. I'm making a point to make sure that I include those 3 videos for you to watch. Thank you, Nisi. Oh, you guys are not late. You're not late. All right. So some people are saying they're late to the live. Nope. I'm starting off slowly. That's why I didn't publicize it as much. Because, sometimes I'll have like 200 people on the live. So it's 58. So it's manageable. And what else did I want to say? Starting in September, taking my birthday week off, but starting in September, every Thursday, I'm going to go live. So every Thursday, 7 to 8, I might miss a few for whatever reason, but for the most part, every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll go live. Okay. So good evening, everyone. All right. So Curtis, my birthday twin again. After the next 5 or 10 years, should I use the equity of my first house and buy my second property for a rental? You could, right? That's one of the things that you can do with your equity, is purchase additional real estate. But I don't know if it's a 5-year, 10-year, it could be sooner than that. You could rent out your current property and then buy a second property and still use like a FHA loan. That's something that people do. Or, you don't necessarily have to use the equity, because sometimes, say that you bought a house for, make it easy, you bought a house for $100,000. Now that house is worth $150,000. And you're like, I'm going to take 30,000 of it or so, and I'm going to put a down payment. You can't buy a house outright. So you're going to use that equity to put maybe a down payment on that second house, and then you're going to rent that out. So you have your house, now you have your rental property. You have to put it most of the time, you have to put at least 20% down on that second house, right? So let's say that the second house is $200,000. So you'll have to put down at least, what is that, $40,000? Yep. Okay. Yep. $40,000. So now you need $40,000 of equity, unless you have your own money saved, to put in on that house. So now you have the mortgage payment on the second house, the mortgage payment on your house, and you have that home equity loan that you took out to put the down payment on. So it may just be a better option to possibly rent out your house and then buy a second house, and show them you can't own or occupy 2 houses. But if you have one rental, right, you can own or occupy house number 2. There are some rules that FHA has, like how far that house has to be away from the first house. But generally, if you're like upgrading what you have or it's in a different location, they'll allow you to rent house 1 and buy house 2 at that lower down payment, that 3.5%. If you do it the other way, you have to put, usually on investment property, 20% down. So most people, when they're trying to, get their first investment property, will at least hold the first property for a year, and then they'll buy the second. They'll rent out that first property that becomes their investment property, and then they'll buy, or they will own or occupy that second property and just purchase it with that lower interest rate. No, not lower. Yeah, lower interest rate and lower down payment. All right, good question, Curtis. Good Virgo question. Where are my Virgos at? Virgos ask detailed questions. All right. Thank you. It's Nini. All right. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be back because I like doing these lives. It gets me to know my audience more and know what you guys are, needing or, wanting to talk about. So I missed you guys too. All right. Cynthia Smith-Ray. Hello, Shaheedah. I've been watching all your videos for almost a year and learned so much. I'm set to close on my first house in about 2 weeks. Congratulations. So you're right into September. Yeah, congratulations. So happy for you. Let me know if it's new construction or resale. Put that in the chat. Is it new construction or resale? Just wondering. All right. So I'll give you some new construction or some resale tips. All right. NL Phillips. I was recently going through the process and the inspector did the inspection and the report was sent to me. He didn't sign off on anything. Did I miss something? All right. So I'm assuming you're talking about not your appraisal, like FHA or VA appraisal. You're talking about your buyer inspection, the one that you paid for. You pay for your appraisal for, but you find you were able to hire your inspector to inspect your home. They don't really sign off. There's nothing for them to sign off on. They just have to give you a copy of the report. So when you are hiring an inspector, you are paying for them to look at different components of your home and give you a report on their condition. So hopefully that's what you have, but they don't need to sign off on anything. Like with the county or the state or the builder, whoever, they don't have to sign off on anything. They just have to give you what you paid for. So hopefully that makes sense. If you're talking more about an FHA or VA appraisal that require repairs, then that might be a little bit different. If you need clarification, just type your question in the chat. Thank you, NL Phillips. All right, Carla gave us a fourth option, leaving property in what's called a transfer on death deed and recorded with your county recorder's office before you die is also a cheap option. So look into that as well. I feel like, again, I'm remembering all of this from our lives. This may be in certain states. For some reason, I'm thinking that it might be in certain states. I'm not sure, but definitely let's put that as option number 4. So 1 would be putting their name on the title. Option 2 would be having a will. Option 3, this is transferring ownership of your property upon your death. So it would be putting their name on the title. It would be, and make sure if you add their name, have a closing attorney, an attorney do it for you. Don't try to do it yourself. And don't use ChatGPT or Zoom, because everything is a little bit different by state. So have them do it correctly. So you want to make sure it's done right. So add their name to the title, have a will, have a trust, or the 4th option is transfer on death deed. See if that's an option for you as well. Thank you, Carla. See, my audience is smart, very smart. All right. Thank you, Mia said so. All right, Mia said so. Yes, we need a video for new construction because that's the only house I want is a new construction house. I've heard such horror stories of paying for the house and not the land. All right, so I want you, number one, not to be scared of new construction. And a lot of people, I did a video, it's like a real simple video, resale versus new construction. I'm generally speaking a resale person. And I think, especially in this environment, and I say that because the product that you're getting, especially at like the first time home buyer price point, the product that you're getting is not as structurally sound. They're not giving you as many, like the trim, the detail isn't as good as it used to be. I think after the pandemic and the supply chain, like they stopped doing certain things because they couldn't get the supplies. But now that people have accepted certain things, like even the trim, if you go to new construction, a lot of these houses, they don't have like a window seal or trim around the windows. It's just the window, right? Where if you go to builds that they used to build, they would have trim and they would have, just different things that were standard in the home. Where after buyers got used to like getting less, then that's all they started doing because they didn't need to go back to the other way. And so that allowed them to save money. But if you look at a resale home and how those were put together and a resale home and a new construction, you'll find that they were built better, right? By the same builders, but they built them much better and larger. So you're getting less square footage. They're usually on a smaller lot. And I'm talking about probably homes like in 500,000 or less. You're getting a smaller lot, less square footage, and you're getting less detail and less, not say structurally sound, but I'm saying just they're cutting corners on a lot of things that you would get as standard in previous builds. So that's number one. That's why I like resale now, but I do understand that a lot of first-time home buyers won't even consider a resale home. They want everything to be new. They want they want to be the first person that got in the house. So things that you have to do as a new construction buyer, you have to get an inspection. And okay, let me say this. You can get several inspections. So you're worried about the land and that sort of thing. The first inspection you can get is a pre-slab inspection. They're going to look at the land because they're putting in like the plumbing, the wires, all that kind of stuff, or whatever they have to do to prep the land. You can have an inspection at that time. Then you can have a slab inspection. Then you can have a pre-drywall. So before they put up the walls, they'll look behind there and make sure everything is done correctly. And then you can have a final inspection. So often there are 4 different inspections you can get with new construction. So that's the fear you don't want to have. You want to make sure too with new construction that you understand that you are getting, okay, there are a lot of incentives to buy new construction, a lower interest rate, you're probably going to get closing costs paid and all of those things, but plan on living there for a while. There's a lot, like I just talked about at the beginning, there are people trying to sell their new construction homes that have only lived there for 2 to 3 years. And they're finding they're underwater, meaning if they were to sell their house, they would not make money on the sale because now they have to offer that new buyer those same incentives to make it affordable for them. So the same way the builder made it affordable to you, you have to make it affordable to that person to purchase your house, or they can just get all the incentives from another builder that's selling their house. So plan on living there for a while so your home value can increase, so that you can get the equity in your house. It's not like during the pandemic, you bought a house and the next year it was worth 25% more. Like that's not happening anymore. Like home values are rising like 2%, like very little. And sometimes that's just keeping track with inflation, basically. So get your inspections. That should calm some of your fears. You want to make sure you understand, the payment and like I said, at the very beginning of this, I went over how much taxes can increase with new construction and why. So understand how that works. And other thing, make sure you know what's happening in the neighborhood, because when they're building new subdivisions, generally with those new people, then there's other building around. Like, are there going to be new schools? What's going to support all of these new neighborhoods? And so you want to have an awareness of what's coming around you as well, because it might be some things that you do or don't agree with. So though all of those things, I do have new construction videos. If you put in new construction or just construction, those videos should come up in search. But my next video that I'm coming out with is going to be don't buy new construction. And I tell you why, unless you do a few things. Some of them I just talked about. And then if you already bought new construction and you're ready to sell, what I think you should do. All right. Good question. All right. Thank you, Mia said so. Curtis says, I bought my house for $340. I've already gained $80,000 in equity. So Curtis, my new chat GPT prompt. I want you to say, hey, I have $80,000 in equity in my home. I want to use this to build wealth in the next 5 years. What are my options to do with my equity? What would be my best options as far as what I can do with this equity? And then see what chat GPT says. Like, we have to use these resources that we have, because everybody else definitely is. Curtis says, I put 10% down. Good. All right, Moon 216. Hi, how are you? I'm good, Moon. Is land, property acres, worth investing in the stock market this year? How is the process of owning land? So one thing about land is usually a buy and hold. Unless you're going to develop it, like just holding land is not going to make you any money. Like there's very few uses for renting it out, right? You can't. I'm gonna rent out the land. I mean, there might be something you can rent it out for, but in most cases, you're buying it to hold because that land, or you're buying it to sell, maybe to somebody else, but maybe a developer or something. But you're buying that land to hold it long term. So hopefully, it's going to be worth more in the future. That's what most people just buy land for, or they're buying land to develop it, like build something on that land, and then making it more valuable, and then they turn around and sell it. So you have to really, if you're buying land, you have to know why you're buying it, because you're going to be making payments on that land, but maybe not generating any income because you can't rent it out, you can't like flip it, that sort of thing. But my other chat GPT prompt, how can I make money off of my land? Ask and have them give you as many ideas as possible. But, that's really all, there's no immediate benefit of just having land. It has to be that you're using it to develop it, or you're buying it to hold it in the hopes that it'll be worth more later. And how you will know it's going to be worth more later, the area in which you are thinking about buying the land, you need to start going to their planning and their zoning meetings. What is happening in that area that would make that land more valuable in the future? Are builders is there some kind of big development or business or factory or something coming there that in, a year's time, 2 years time, 3 years time, then that land is going to be more valuable. All right. So the process of owning it would just be to buy it, pay the taxes on it. There's really not much you could do. Also, check the zoning of the land, because most cities or counties will have, if you're buying land, you can't do everything on it. Can you do agriculture on it? Like, can you have a farm? Can you grow something on it? That's another use for the land. But also, or can it be residential? Can it be business? You need to know the zoning for that land. What is allowed to be built there? Because if you have a thought of what you want to do with the land, and they already have what it's zoned for, then you have to like apply with that city or that council to say, I want to change in the zoning for this. And they may say no. And then you have a land that you can't even do what you want with it. All right. Good question, Moon 2016. All right, Christian. I want to save up for my first property. I'm in Atlanta. Hey, I'm in Atlanta too. And I don't know if I should get a cheap house in an underdeveloped area that is predicted to go up, or a condo in a more desirable area with the goal to rent. So let's think this through, Christian. It's a very good question. So let's go at part one. And this is for everybody. In most cities, especially major cities, they will have home buyer programs, and they will have programs a lot of times to try to get you to move to areas that they're trying to develop. And they have plans for the development of these areas. So the first thing he should do is say, okay, what areas is a city pushing people to live in? We have something in Atlanta called Invest Atlanta, and they're giving people like $30,000, $40,000 to move to certain areas. And then they have the plan of what's going to happen to those areas over time. So that's something that he should do as soon as possible. They have a website. And then if you're in a major city, you should find out, what are the areas that they're pushing people? They're like encouraging people to move to. My sister, that's one video I have. It's probably about 4 years old, but my sister about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago now, she bought an area that wasn't doing anything. Like, we all questioned why she was moving there. But the city of Atlanta was promoting, like they were giving extra money. They were doing tax abatements. You didn't have to pay taxes for a few years, like property taxes, if you move to these areas. Now, come 3-4 years later, they're building, it's like a whole like gentrified area now. So what the house that she bought, I think for like 125 or something, is now worth 500,000. So we were looking at her like she was crazy. Like, where's my niece gonna go to school? And da 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 da. And she's sitting, I think she's done like several refinances, cash out refinances, things like that over the years. But like, it was a great investment for her. And she only had to wait 6 years. Probably the first 3 years, she saw the majority of her investment. And this even gotten more. Like, they're building around her like $800,000 townhomes. There's a college that's, has dorms, and there's restaurants and all of that kind of stuff now. So she knew what we didn't know back then, that, what was coming in the future there. So start attending those meetings. Again, planning, zoning, what are they doing? And then let's go talk about the condo. What I generally don't like about condos, especially if you're trying to rent them, is that they're HOAs. Like, ideally, if you're trying to do rentals or, Airbnb or anything like that, then you want to have the least restrictions on your property as possible. Most condos have so many covenants and restrictions that may be hard for you to rent. And even the city is cracking down like Airbnbs and what you can do with your property. So before you go the condo route, you need to look and see, okay, let me look at the covenants in some of these communities to see if it's even allowed for me to rent it out. If it is, how long I can rent it, who I can rent it to. There might be a lot of rules around that. So I like, if you're investing, try to get into one of these programs, and have them pay as much of it, your down payment, your closing costs, all of that for you, especially you at least look really young, right? You have time, especially if you don't have a family yet. This is a time that you can live and not have to worry about schools and that sort of thing. So definitely do that. But condos are going to have so many restrictions on what you can do and the improvements sometimes that you can make, then it may not be worth it for you to do that. So that's my only like warning, I guess, is to make sure that you look at those covenants and restrictions, because the condos may be less expensive, but when you start paying that monthly HOA, there'll be condos for $200,000 and have a monthly HOA of $800 for maintenance and, whatever amenities that you have. So just be really cautious of those. Thank you, Christian. All right. Sunita says it's a resale. So I'm sure you did all your inspections, all of your stuff. One thing I like to tell resale buyers to do, I'm sure there are certain things you may have negotiated with the seller to do before you close, but there are some things that, you couldn't agree to, you're going to have to do yourself. So have that inspection report and know, okay, these are the things I still need to do or I still need to address, and do that over time, kind of like your home maintenance. They may not be like super emergencies, but use that inspection report to say, okay, these are some of the things that I want to do over time, just to make sure you keep up with that maintenance. So that's my number one like tip for you after closing on a resale. But also watch my top 10 things to do after closing. If you just put closing, you might have already watched it, but it's like my top 10 things to do after closing. But congratulations. I love a resale. All right. NL Phillips says, I missed the first few minutes and came in and heard something about an inspector signing off on a rusty water heater, but it makes sense to me now. It was FHA inspection that required. No, I was talking about a deal that I had. He didn't sign off on a rusty water heater. It was my client's home inspector that said the water heater needed to be replaced. I don't even think an FHA inspector would look at the water heater, that it needs to be replaced. And he was going back and forth with the seller versus whether they want to replace it or repair it. So go back and just rewind that part, but it wasn't the FHA appraiser. It wasn't them. All right. Thank you. All righty. Hi, Nicole. Hey, Nicole. Hey, Shaheedah. Good to see you live. This is what I was speaking about when we spoke last. This is one of my friends. We went to lunch probably about 2 weeks ago. Transfer on death, deed, and life insurance policy to pay off the home and ensure her daughter would be okay. Yeah, but I was saying just check. We're both in Georgia. If transfer of deed is a thing, I want to say it's not. But double check that for me. Y'all might be looking at it right now and let me know. All right. So random, thanks, Nicole. Random says, can you do a video on how best to prepare for the builder follow-up that occurs around the 10th or 11-month mark after purchasing a new construction home, like things to have them address? Okay. So this is a good question. I'm trying to make sure y'all can see me. All right. So for everybody, you may not know, most new construction homes come with a 1-year warranty that covers everything. And then they have other warranties that are, maybe 2 years, 5 years, 10 years that cover like structure and things like that. But generally speaking, the first year warranty covers everything. So if something breaks, you can call the plumber, you can call the electrician, you can call whatever the contractor is to fix it. And most, well, I'm not saying most, some builders also offer them to come back. So before your 1-year warranty expires, they offer to come back at the 10-month mark or the 11-month mark to address anything that you need addressed. So the first thing would be that as you're in the home, because home inspections are one thing, but when you're actually living in a house, you're going to see things that the home inspector probably didn't see. So you should be keeping a running log through, whether you're just keeping it on your phone or, as you see things. If it's not an emergency, then you want to have things like a list that you're keeping of things that you want to have addressed at that 10-month mark, if they're not things that you need to have the builder come out immediately for. The other thing is you may want to consider paying for a home inspection again, because it's like your last chance to ask for things to be fixed and not have to pay for it, right, to get done. So you may want to, and this, it's going to be pricey. You can have the same inspector that came out. If you like them, maybe they'll give you a discount and say, hey, I'm at the 10-month mark. Or especially if you never got an inspection, if you didn't get a home inspection when you moved in for new construction, have an inspector come out at that 10-month mark, that 11-month mark, and do an inspection of the home so they can go over anything that needs to be addressed at that 10, 11-month mark. But you can have it inspected again. But generally speaking, just keep that list and have them address those things before you go, if you don't want to hire the inspector to come back out. All right, good question. All right, Miss E. I'm looking to downsize. Remember I told y'all downsize, death, divorce, and drama. That's what all these sellers are doing right now. All right, I'm looking to downsize. What are your thoughts on active adult communities? All right, I think they're a very good option and generally they start at about 55 and older. So if you're 55 and older, you have an option, like you tired of kids running around the neighborhood and you want to just, have a lot in common with your neighbors. You want to just be able to relax. Nobody's having these, well, sometimes, over 55 can get rowdy too, but you just don't have that energy sometimes in a neighborhood with a lot of children, because a 55 and older community, generally speaking, restrict children under 18 from living there more than 60 days. And so I like the idea of the community. They generally have high HOAs, so you do want to look into that and look at the covenants. And if you have grown children, y'all know how many grown children come back home, they lost their job, they get divorced, something happens and they trying to come back home for something. You need to know that you won't have the option. And a lot of these covenants for active adult communities, especially if they're 55 and older, they will have an option that say in the covenants that you can't have any people under 18 living in your property for more than 60 days. The same thing, you will have, rental restrictions, that sort of thing. So that's the only thing I would really think about before I did it. But what I find for the clients that I've had move into 55 and older, they really like it. It's laid back. They have amenities. A lot of them are retired and they want to like have more of a sense of community, because I mean, regular subdivisions nowadays, people go in their garage and go in their house. You don't even know who your neighbors are. So it's more of a sense of community. They have events. A lot of times they're gated, they're more secure. So I definitely like them, but just get the covenants ahead of time and kind of really know like what are the rules and regulations of that community. Now, on the flip side of that, for my people that are younger than 55 and you have no children, you can move to a 55 and older community, because a lot of the communities will allow at least 20% of the residents or the home owners to be younger than 55. So that was a hack. I think I talked about it during the pandemic as being a hack for some people, that they can get into a 55 and older community as long as they haven't reached that 20% mark yet. So think about that. If you're just like, you're 30 and you don't have any children, maybe not planning on having children, and you want a laid back lifestyle, you could move into a 55 and older community, because typically their rules say at least 20% of the people have to can be younger than that. And again, if you are married, or you're buying with a significant other, then only one of you typically needs to be 55 and older. So if you're 55 but your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever is 40, y'all can still move there typically. So yes, so look at them. If you're in Atlanta, reach out to me or go to confidentlyclose.com for a referral. But yes, thank you, Miss E. All right, we're already at 8 o'clock. So I'll do my last 5, because some of y'all are just coming in, which is good. So again, let me say a couple of things before we close. Confidentlyclose.com is my new website. If you go to Shaheedah Hill, it'll still take you to confidentlyclose.com. So I just organized it so everything's in one place. All right. What else? So let's see what else. All right. That's all I need to say. I think go to my new website. This is the best way to find out all the information. If you need a referral for your state, I will be starting in September. I'll be going live every Thursday again. I was, on a roll, but so Thursday, 7 to 8 Eastern time, I'll be live. And so I'm going to answer 5 more questions before I get out. All right. I think radioactive pharmacist is my next question. Okay. Radioactive pharmacist says, is recasting better than refinancing a mortgage? So when you recast a mortgage, you have to put a certain amount of money toward it. So a recast is basically, you have a lump sum of money. So say that, let's go back to our $100,000. You already have a mortgage, you're paying on that $100,000, and you come into $30,000. And you're like, I want to put this $30,000 on the house and then have my payments redone, so then I can start paying less every month. So that's an option, but you have to have a lump sum of money. You can't just do a recast for the sake of recasting. Y'all could check me on that, but I think you have to have a lump sum in order to do a recast. So check on that. And a lot of people don't have it. So it's not necessarily as better or worse, but if you have a lump sum of money that wouldn't be better spent in other areas, then it might make sense. Because when you're doing, because you keep your same interest rate. When you're doing a refinance, this is a good, sorry, let me write this down. This is a good video for me to do, is recasting better than refinancing. But so that's number 1. So recast. You can look up mortgage recast so you can see what it is. But a refinance, when you refinance your mortgage, then you're getting whatever the market interest rate is. And so in a lot of cases, if you bought prior to probably 2022, your mortgage rate is the lowest it's ever been, right? So you don't want to go from a 3% to a 6%. It doesn't make sense. It definitely doesn't make sense. So where recast, you're able to keep your interest rate, but you have to have a lump sum that you're putting down. So I think it just depends on the scenario and what you're doing and how much cash you have to put toward the mortgage to recast it. So like I had Kevin, I've had that lender on my channel for a while. He did recommend a recast to one of my clients, but they had a significant amount of money that they were going to put down. And I think he advised them, don't put the money down. Let's wait. Don't put all the money down. Let's wait and let's recast it. So, and he gave them all the reasons why. So maybe I'll have Kevin come on and explain it. He'll probably do it better than me. But good question, radioactive. And that's my 1 of 5 before I get out of here. Annie says, hey, Shaheedah, what's your thoughts on putting your home in a trust? I like this idea. So my home is in a trust. I have a trust, but it's not just because a lot of people ask, did I put my home in a trust? It's not just my home in a trust. Like all of my assets are in the trust. So and the home is one of my assets. And the main reason it's in the trust because when we pass away, or if I pass away first, my husband passed away first, it doesn't have to be probated. Everything will automatically go to whatever, the executor puts in place. If something happens to me, he's the executor. He'll be able to, handle the trust. If something happens to him, I'll be able to handle the trust. If something happens to both of us and our kids are still here, then we have another executor that will come in and take over the trust until they're of age. So my home is in a trust, but all of my assets are in a trust. My life insurance is in the trust. My bank accounts are in the trust. Everything's in the trust. So sometimes if you're going to invest in a trust and have an attorney do it for you, then you don't just want to put one thing in a trust. So that's my answer to that. I do the same question was being asked about how to best leave your home to your children. And so I said, I've done 3 videos with a lawyer answering all of these questions. So I'm going to put them in the description of this video. So as soon as I get off, I'll get off probably in the next 10 minutes. So by say 8, no later than 9 o'clock, all of those video links will be in there. So go back and watch those. All right, good question. Nicole said she checked it out. She said the transfer of death deed became recognized in the state of Georgia on July 1st, 2024. So that's why I didn't know if it was, it's newer to Georgia. So check this out for your state because it may, again, be a less expensive option for a trust. I always tell people I got my trust on a discount. Trust probably cost $3,000 to $4,000. There was a lawyer having a sale, like a Christmas sale, and I attended one of her seminars on trust, and she sent an email out in December or something, some years ago, and she said, I'm doing trust for anybody for $1,500 if you sign up now or something. So I got my trust for $1,500, which is a really good price. All right, let me try to get 2 more before my battery goes out. I think I only have 1 done. All right, so Ronica will be my last one. Thank you guys for joining me. You'll have the replay. I really appreciate everything and all the condolences for my family. Thank you so much. All right, Ronica, I'm retired and have money saved. My income is 80% of the Georgia median income. And a lot of times when you're qualifying for things like down payment assistance, they're making sure that you make less than the median income. So that's probably why she's mentioning that. It's not specific to Georgia, but it's, every state has a threshold of people that meet the down payment assistance criteria. All right, I don't want to use my savings on a home. What are the chances of me getting seller to pay agent and closing? Very high. A lot of states, including Georgia, is becoming a buyer's market. There's more than 6 months in some areas of inventory right now on the market, which is a true buyer's market. Anything after less than 3 months is considered a seller's market. As you start getting higher and higher, then 6 months or more of inventory is a true buyer's market. But most of my clients have gotten some, if not all of their closing costs paid, and they paid me 3%. So definitely, the market has definitely changed. So you can get both of those done. The only thing I want to kind of warn you about, and this is for everybody, if you have a lot of money saved, and I know you're going to hate this, but this is the way it is. If you have a lot of money saved, you may not qualify for down payment assistance because in some states, depending on the program, if you have too much money in assets, you won't qualify. So for example, some down payment assistance programs will say you can't have more than 5% of the home price, or 20% of the home price, or 10% of the home price in savings. And if you do, you don't qualify, because they figure you're not a person that needs the assistance. So be very cautious about that, and know what that threshold is, because if you've been saving for a long time and you have, which is a great thing, you have this money, you've saved it up, and now you don't qualify for down payment assistance. If it's in a retirement account, they can't touch it. They don't evaluate it. So if it's in your 401k, your Roth IRA, then it's not a big deal. But if it's just sitting like in a savings account and it's above that threshold, you may not qualify for any assistance. But again, if you're in Georgia and you need an agent, before I wasn't really taking people, but now I have a new agent on my team. So I'm able to have a little bit more flexibility. So go to confidentlyclose.com, and there's a Georgia tab if you need a Georgia agent, and then you'll be connected to me and my team. Thank you so much. You'll have a great night. I will see you the first Thursday in September.